Neha could feel the weight of the moment pressing on her chest as she stood in the hallway of Rajan's penthouse. The air felt thick, charged with an energy she could no longer deny. Each step she took toward his door felt like an irreversible decision, and her heart raced with a mixture of fear and anticipation. There was no turning back now. The past few days had been a blur of intense emotions, passion, and confusion. Rajan's presence had consumed her thoughts, and the longing that had built between them was undeniable. But there was a darkness to their relationship, something Neha had tried to ignore but couldn't any longer. The lines between love and lust, desire and obsession, had blurred beyond recognition. She had spent the day questioning herself, wondering if this was what she truly wanted, or if she was just being pulled into a dangerous game. But deep down, Neha knew the truth. Rajan had awakened something inside her, a side she hadn't known existed until now, a side that yearned for more than just love. She craved power, control, and the thrill of the forbidden. With a deep breath, she knocked softly on the door. The sound echoed in the quiet hallway, and before she could even pull her hand away, the door swung open. Rajan stood there, his presence as commanding as ever. His dark eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, Neha felt like she was caught in a storm of emotions. His gaze was intense, filled with something she couldn't quite read. Desire, yes, but something deeper, something darker. "Neha," he said, his voice low and smooth, sending a shiver down her spine. "I've been waiting for you." Without waiting for a response, he stepped aside, allowing her to enter. Neha hesitated for a moment before walking past him, feeling the heat of his gaze on her back. She tried to steady her breath as she moved into the penthouse, the familiar scent of his cologne mixing with the faint smell of wine and expensive leather. Rajan closed the door softly behind her, and in that moment, Neha knew there was no escaping this, no way out. She was already in too deep. He turned to face her, his eyes never leaving hers. "You've been distant lately," he observed, his voice dark with an edge of possessiveness. "Tell me, Neha, what are you afraid of?" Neha's heart skipped a beat at the intensity of his words. She wasn't afraid of him, not exactly. But she was afraid of what she had become since meeting him. This addiction to him, this need for his touch, for his approval, was consuming her in a way she couldn't control. She had always prided herself on being strong, on being in control of her own destiny. But with Rajan, she had lost all semblance of control. "I'm not afraid," Neha replied, her voice more confident than she felt. "But I need to understand what this is between us." Rajan stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face, his fingers lingering on her skin for a moment longer than necessary. "What it is everything you've ever wanted, Neha," he whispered, his voice thick with desire, "and everything you didn't know you needed." His words sent a jolt of heat through her, and Neha couldn't help but feel the pull of his words, the magnetism of his touch. She had resisted for so long, but tonight, she was ready to give in completely. The part of her that longed for control, for power, for something more than just passion was finally breaking free. Without another word, Rajan closed the distance between them, his lips crashing onto hers. The kiss was fierce, urgent, as if they were both starving for each other. Neha responded immediately, her hands threading into his hair, pulling him closer as their bodies collided with an intensity that left her breathless. Rajan's hands were everywhere, on her back, her waist, her neck, as if he couldn't get enough of her. Neha felt herself melting into him, her mind clouded with desire. She knew this was dangerous, that she was teetering on the edge of something she couldn't control. But at that moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was the heat between them, the fire that burned so hot it threatened to consume them both. Rajan broke the kiss only to lift her effortlessly into his arms, carrying her toward the bedroom. Neha wrapped her arms around his neck, feeling the power of his touch as he laid her down on the bed. She felt exposed, vulnerable, but also more alive than she had in years. "You wanted to understand this," Rajan murmured, his lips trailing down her neck, sending waves of shivers through her body. "Well, Neha, this is it. This is what we are," Neha gasped as his hands roamed over her body, exploring, claiming, leaving no part of her untouched. She had never felt so completely consumed, so utterly wanted. Rajan wasn't just taking from her. He was giving her something she hadn't realized she'd been searching for: control, power, and the release of every forbidden desire she had buried inside her. The night stretched on, and as the hours passed, Neha found herself losing track of time, of everything that had come before. There was only him, only them, only the feeling of being completely engulfed in each other. By the time the sun began to rise, Neha knew she couldn't go back. She had crossed a line with Rajan that couldn't be uncrossed, and for better or for worse, she had given herself to him completely. But even as she lay in his arms, breathless and sated, Neha couldn't help but wonder, what would the price of this desire be? To be continued.